Yep, as ready as I was last time. Okay. Hi, my name is Cail, and I want to share some information with you, try to persuade you to think about something that you hear about from time to time. And in today's climate in Washington, everybody's unhappy about the way our politicians are working, and every few years you'll hear the term come up, term limits, as the fixed horse go wrong in D.C. Specifically, though, I want to talk about term limits for one specific office, and that's the President of the United States. We all know he has term limits now. 2 4-year terms, and that's it. The problem with that is that almost immediately after starting his first term, he's in campaign mode for his second term. There are proposals out there that the presidential office should be 1 6-year term, and there's some practical thought behind that. Myra Adams, from the Daily Beast, political columnist, that says, think about a president that never has to campaign again once he gets in office. Doesn't have to worry about re-election, doesn't have to worry about getting his second term. He can lead without politics. He can make decisions without worrying about how it's going to affect his next chance. She makes an argument, too, that a sitting president almost guarantees himself a second term unless he does something really bone dead. Of the 32 presidents that ran for a second term, 22 of them won. So it's almost an assumed that he's going to run because he starts campaigning again almost right away. Tegan Goddard of the Political Wire points out that second terms tend to be the hardest one on the president. He has to campaign in the middle of it, and then as soon as he's done, the work really starts. And we've all seen those pictures of the president, any president, when he starts office, and then how bad he looks around the end of his second term. They age terribly. One of the thoughts behind that is this is a much bigger world, meaning that there's more going on. There's more pressing on the president. There's more data. There's more conflicts. Technology has even made that worse. The president we have now is probably the most technologically advanced president we have. He has Twitter. He has an iPhone. Constantly on. If you think back, early on, 100 years ago, the president had to ask a question. He had to wait a week and a half for the Pony Express to come back and answer. So the pace of the job, the weight of the job is significantly higher. So from a practical standpoint, no more campaigning. From a health standpoint, it's less of a burden on the president than sitting in office. Now, there are people who will say, and this is not politically affiliated, I actually have felt about this term limit thing regardless of who the sitting president is, but there are people who say, no, you can't do it. It's constitutional. It's always been that way. The fact of the matter is, a single-term presidency has been in consideration since the First Continental Congress in 1787. The original intent was for the office of the president to be a single 7-year term. However, everybody was in love with George Washington. George Washington was actually offered the presidency as a lifetime appointment. He turned it down. They wanted George to be in office as long as he wanted to be. So they made it a 4-year term, but there were no term limits. George Washington, by choice, did not seek a 3rd term. The constitutional amendment that locked the president into 2 terms is only 64 years old. The 22nd Amendment was passed in 1951. Prior to that, there was no term limits. They could run as often as they could get elected. And in fact, we have had 2 presidents seek and achieve a 3rd term. Roosevelt and I forgot the other one. So, the other issue that seems to come into play, and these are my visual aids, I'm doing them as handouts. Usually about in the 3rd term is when the president tends to seek his lowest rating or achieve his lowest rating. Almost of the last 2-term presidents we have, in their 6th year, even though that may not be the first time they all attained their lowest approval rating during their time in office. again, a lot of that has to do with midterm elections, and the impact of the last campaign. So, in conclusion, a single 6-year term, better health for the president, better health for our economy, better health for our country, no politics in office, a president who never has to worry about his political career. So, in my world, one and done.